Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Keep Moving Forward podcast. Join us every week as we dive into the stories of remarkable current and former athletes that have transitioned into the real world. Now here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the 219th episode of the Keep Moving Forward podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. Today in the KMF Collective Studio, I have with me speed and agility coach, shareholder and director at Champions Quest Athlete Academy, owner of the digital platform Stronger Quicker, and speaker Ryan Bishel. How are you doing, Ryan?
Hey, Katie. How are you doing today? I'm doing great here in Southern California. It's been a warm weekend, and I'm doing great.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for stopping by to share your story with us today. I'm super excited to dive in.
Awesome. Let's get this going and see what happens.
Yeah, right. Just see what happens. We good. So Ryan, just to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit, I wonder, where did you grow up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
Yeah, I grew up in the quote-unquote Midwest of California. I grew up in the Central Valley, Fresno being the closest largest city. I'm from the same county that the Yosemite National Park is in, Madera. And I grew up, as a young athlete and farm boy, basically. My family business was agriculture. We grew up farming sun-made raisins and blue diamond almonds, and grew up, around a lot of just, ag and, growing food with my dad and relatives. And I was an athlete all during that time as well. So basically, if I wasn't, in practice, I was also a musician at the time. I played saxophone my whole life. So if I wasn't playing music in sports or doing schoolwork, I was driving tractor or working around the farm, basically.
I love that. It's a very, diverse, very, you did a lot of different stuff growing up. I mean, from being an athlete to being able to work on a farm, and then to having music be such an influential part of your childhood as well. Yeah,
it really kept me balanced. And that's a really important word with athletes, I think, is just, it helped me have balance and creative outlets. And, I never felt like I had burnout in any one thing, plus I have a lot of fun hobbies. I was an adrenaline guy, wakeboarding, water skiing, dirt, quad riding, you name it, anything with a motor I'll drive, so I always had a different outlets to kind of go to if I ever felt a sense of overwhelm in a way. And that really helped me, get through all my childhood and get through everything. Plus it gave me diverse kind of backgrounds and things to pull from, and really helped me become more relatable as a coach, not to jump too far forward, but at a point in my career, back in 2005, I got to be a performance coach for a Supercross team. And it was kind of fun mixing my professional knowledge with a hobby of mine at the same time, so that's why sometimes you never know why you experience certain things, but then years later can kind of come in front of you and say, oh, that's why I was taught that,
Yeah. I love that. I mean, one, drawing on your own experiences, and then two, kind of seeing where that athletic drive leads you. So being open to, one, like you said, later in life, getting into coaching and being able to help coach a Supercross team. But then it goes back to just things, pursuing different passions that you had. And so Ryan, for you at that young age, when athletics was clearly shaping so much from your mindset to just your athleticism in general and looking forward, was there a sport at that time that really kind of stood out to you, that took hold of your heart, that you really loved and dove in with? Or did you just really focus on all manner of sports leading up into middle school and high school?
Yeah, I'll kind of get into my athletic, timeline. I grew up a gymnast, actually. I got into gymnastics and got onto a competitive team. I also play a little Little League, and I did play soccer as well. But being on a competitive gymnastics team does take up, couple hours a night, 5-6 days a week, a lot of travel on weekends and things, going to competitions. But I'm 6'2", and I started growing at a young age, and I realized, I'm not a quitter. I don't like to quit things. But there was a time where I finally had a realization that my body just didn't match up. And also my mindset didn't match up with what is needed. This is all hindsight, of course, looking back, easier to say now than back then. But I just, gymnasts are very unique people. There's a certain mindset and fearlessness they have to have, and they have to have a very harmonious kind of energy around them to handle being a perfectionist, and going through what's needed to basically be perfect, right? And so that was a nugget kind of planted in my head that later in life, I kind of unraveled more and, kind of did a deeper dive and peeled the onion back on why I had those thoughts and why I had those emotions when I was competing. But that's a different conversation. I was a competitive gymnast, got too tall, switched when I went into high school. My older brother has Down syndrome, special needs, and the coach let him be on the swim team, and he's very active, very high functioning. He rode dirt bikes with or quads with us. He water skied with me, and very active, and was on the swim team. And so it was pretty easy transition being in a hot 100-degree Central Valley to go into the water, considering I lived in the water when, things got hot. We had a pool growing up. And so I ended up taking up swimming and water polo all through high school. And water polo was just soccer in the water, basically, how I looked at it, and transitioned to those sports. So I had a really good, high school competitive career, learning how to mentally push through, not let yourself get drowned, basically.
Yeah.
A lot of mindset was kind of molding at that point, from the perfectionist athlete to now there's like endurance play that came into my life of how do you balance the endurance and the grit and the consistency and resiliency to push through the demands of swimming and water polo, mixed with the physical demands of it. And then when I went into college, instead of walking on, college recruiting wasn't really big in the town I grew up in. It was pretty small. I mean, I went to Long Beach State for college, and the university population was bigger than my hometown population, And,
wow.
Anyway, so instead of walking onto the team, I ended up switching. I just wanted to break. I was really busy my whole life, as I gave you part of my background, what I was involved in. But that lasted 3 months basically. And then I got recruited to the crew team, and I got on top of the water instead of in the water, and learned a whole other level of mindset at that point, even higher level of endurance, when you have a cadence to stick to. And if you slow it down at all, you throw off the rhythm of the boat, or you get an oar in your back. Right. So basically I learned a whole other level of mindset around sports, and I was already getting into teaching and coaching. I like to give back. I'm someone who I really feel my purpose in life is to teach others. And so coaching just came natural to me. So what I learned in all three phases of my life, middle school, into high school, and then as a college athlete, all molded me into who I am now to impact others.
Absolutely. And it seems key, Ryan, as is what you do with your whole life now, but that your mindset and your mental approach to everything, that's been kind of a real consistent factor throughout all of it. Whether, like you said, whether you realize it or not at the time, hindsight is 2020. And now you realize the incredible importance of that mindset. And so for you, kind of looking back a little bit, like you said, that transition from gymnastics into then, swimming and water polo. So that initial transition of you became really tall and realized gymnastics, okay, maybe that's not the right sport for me anymore. Even in that choice to choose a new sport, how difficult was it for you at such a young age to navigate that transition of doing a sport for hours a day, pouring your life into it, and then realizing, okay, this might not be the sport for me because I don't have maybe the right body style, or it's just I'm learning that it's a lot more challenging for me maybe than my other teammates. So I'm looking for another sport. How difficult was it for you to navigate that specific transition?
Yeah, that's a great topic, actually. And what I've done over the years, and my coaches who coach the athletes underneath me at my academy, and we've all had to deal with transition and mentoring others through transition. And I'm really trying to think now. I don't think I've met someone who didn't have a transition of some sort that they've had to deal with, right?
Right.
And so it is a really good topic to discuss, Katie. Transition, I think if we look at, I'm an optimist, right? I'm an internal optimist, right? So let's look at the positive part of it first. With any transition, we can use the word change as a kind of, synonym for it, right? Mm-hmm. And so some people thrive on change, and that's how I was as a person. So the transition came easier to me than maybe some others because I thrive on a new environment, right? If you take me to a new city and say, hey, I wake up tomorrow and I'm in the Midwest, or I'm in Florida, I'm in, Alaska, who knows, wherever you put me, I could still thrive in that environment. I live off of a change and evolving. So I might have a little different story where I looked forward to the new challenge. I looked forward to a new skill set, but I also didn't erase my past. I pulled from, the perfectionist of the athlete part of me, where it was, okay, let's say when I was rowing, the handle height, came down to the millimeter of how high my handle was on that oar to keep balance in the boat. So I pulled from that perfectionist feel, kind of, kinesthetically, basically, what did that feel really feels like? And I was in the stroke pair, so I set the pace of the whole boat. I had to be very particular, right? So I pulled from that to help me transition and say, hey, okay, I can pull from that, from water polo and, swimming, that endurance mentality of you keep pulling, you feel the rhythm, and you almost get into that flow state. You hear marathon runners and other athletes talk about this flow, right? You almost forget about the little details that are happening because you're so in that kind of blinded laser focus mentality. And so I pulled from that swimming mindset of the flow when it came into rowing. And then the water polo, the attack part, right? So the water polo or the soccer player in me brought that attack mindset. Okay, I got to attack the start. I got to attack the finish of the race. I have to have that. Just like you as a track athlete, you have that kick at the end, right?
Right,
right. We gotta have that attack bulldog, warrior paint on our face kind of mindset, and then kick into that. When I was in college, I getting my kinesiology degree, I actually really opened up my whole other world when I took sports psychology. Right, a lot of answers started coming through when I took that course, and I've never looked back since. And I actually wrote a race plan. My last race, the last season of rowing, I actually wrote a race plan for the last half of the season. And it was what I thought in my head. Every about 50 to 100 meters, I had a different thought that I thought about that got me through the whole 6-minute race. Right. And it kind of put all that together, what you just asked me. At the start, I thought one thing, the middle, I thought something, about 25% less to go, I was in a different mindset when the lactic acid was kicking in, right?
Yeah.
And then there was more of an attack, yet not leaving the flow state when it came to really pulling through that finish. And, as most athletes do, we kind of sometimes leave competition with shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I'm sure you've had them, Katie.
Of course.
Where I could have done this, I should have done that, I could have done that, right? Could have slept more, ate differently, studied film more, whatever it may be, whatever sport we compete in, right? A race car driver, I could have cut in that corner a little sooner, brake later, whatever it may be, right? Mm-hmm. And I can honestly say that my last race as a college athlete, and this helped me talk about transition again, this helped me transition out. I basically, I don't know how you do it when you're hyperventilating, but I basically passed out in a way as I crossed the finish line. Wow. So I knew leaving that I knew I wasn't going on to some professional sport or another level, that I did not want to have a shoulda, coulda, woulda leaving the sport. And so that was something that I owned and took on, and it was something I was already experimenting with because I was already coaching and training athletes at the time. And how can you be a great coach if you don't own something or demonstrate it yourself, right?
Yeah.
So that is something that, in going back to the topic of transition, it's finding these little nuggets of mindset you can kind of lock onto and use that as your true north or your compass, and not let other influencers get in the way of it, right? Mm-hmm. You have to own, it's your life, right? You have to own that mindset nugget and be okay with whatever the outcome is. And if you're not okay, that means you didn't do something that was true to yourself. You didn't train right. You didn't run as hard as you could. You left too much in the tank, or you didn't listen to your coach, or what. I can go on and on, but there's all these little factors that make up a amazing performance, or something that's really lifelong impacting of that performance. So yeah. That helped. I think I answered your question about transition.
Absolutely. You just went all into all your transitions. And I love that, because it's like you said, it's never just realizing, I mean, you're able to reflect back now, but it's never just that one transition, whether it's from college to the real world, or being a professional athlete into, okay, what am I going to do next? Or high school to that transition, or even maybe in middle school, if your athletic career ends there and you're going into high school, whatever that next step is, it's not exclusive to athletics, but then you're realizing too, like with what what you are doing, what you're talking about, that mindset is key. And if you do regret something, if you feel like there's something left to be desired, or that you could have done more, you should have done more, that's where those hangups come from, and where it's hard to start. You start to question, could I have done more? Should I continue on? Is there a way to maybe replicate or have that last race again so that I don't feel like anything is left? And so I love what you're saying, how you need to approach that with that mindset of thinking, okay, if this really is my last race, like you said, you were coaching athletes already at that time, you had to practice what you were putting out there and show, okay, I am going to literally leave everything I possibly can. There's going to be nothing left to be desired. And so for Ryan, for you, knowing that then, so you said you're coming up on your last race rowing, knowing that it was going to be your last run, no aspirations to continue on with your athletic career because you knew that you wanted to get into coaching. Was that something, being a coach, that you said that was something that you kind of felt drawn to your whole life? But did you know at that time going into college, you said majoring in kinesiology, was that something you knew, okay, I'm going to graduate, complete my athletic career and then go right into coaching? Or what was that next phase like for you? Did you already have that set up, or did you think maybe your degree or what you were looking at was going to take a different shape?
No, that's a great question, Katie. And just a little background, I do go speak to local universities in the kinesiology departments over well over a decade. I've been talking to college students. So this is actually a topic that does get brought up. And the good thing about the local universities where I live here in like North Orange County, South LA County, there are internships required within the degree to graduate with it. So you have to get field work done. It's not just something, hey, I got my diploma, now walk into a job. It's not really like that. And so what I do is help reinforce what the professors are encouraging students to do, is get field work, get hands-on. Go, if you think it's physical therapy, go work in a physical therapy office, or even if you donate your time to get hours. If you think you're going to be a college coach or a high school coach or whatever avenue you think you're going to go with that degree, think of the degree like an umbrella degree, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to get some experience with it because there are a lot of unknowns. And here's my unknown. Part of why I picked the college I went to was because I thought I was going to be a physical therapist. Because of, as an athlete or a young child, little nuggets get planted in our head by our relatives or people around us, right?
Right.
So because I was good with my hands, I'm very hands-on. I could build anything. I basically remodeled my whole house, tore it down and built a deck. I did a lot of stuff hands-on myself, right? I could build athletes. I'm very, physical and technical, right? And so I was infatuated with the human body. And I was just always had an infatuation with muscles and mind and how everything connects and works, right? How things become autonomous, basically, how we can like tie our shoes without thinking about it, all the wiring, right? Mm-hmm. And so I thought I was going to go the physical therapy route because I was told I'm very good with massage and working the muscle, knowing what the body needs. So I thought, okay, well, I don't want to just be a masseuse. I'll go more to the physical therapy route and help people because I just want to help. And make sure I change people's trajectories for the better in their life. And my advisor told me, you need to go talk to a physical therapist. Go interview one, right? And that was just part of me as my freshman year, I think. And I walked out of that probably 30, 40-minute interview, went and changed my major the next day because I realized that what was planted in my head and what I thought was completely different once I actually sat with a real physical therapist. I never talked to one. Here I wanted this whole career, and I never even talked to a physical therapist in my life, right?
Wow.
And so I realized that the way my mindset was, I didn't want to be in the school system longer. I didn't feel a pull to get my master's and get more letters after my last name and, all those things. And so I switched the mindset at the time, and my new advisor told me, that, hey, with your background and what you're into, and you really like the psychology side, which her husband taught my sports psychology class, so there's a little bit of connection that way, said, hey, there's this place in Irvine, it was called Intensity at the time, it no longer exists, but I, from day one of that internship, realized that I am destined to be a performance coach. I didn't even know it existed at the time, because where I grew up in a small town, there wasn't a performance coach. You basically had your coach of your high school team, and that was it. There wasn't like this off-site person you worked with. And, I'll tell my age, I am 41, so, I grew up in the 90s through high school, and that wasn't around,
Yeah.
And so so basically this kind of, and this is when I can get into this kind of more this higher level talk, Katie, where there was always this gravitational pull to do something that didn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Not to just jump into like a system. And that's why I never felt pulled to go to university. I started training professional athletes through an agent I got introduced to. And even though I was training these guys about to go to NFL, go to, Canadian Football League, NFL Europe. I trained these professional motocross riders back in 04, 05. I had this taste of that next level training, and I was good at it, but I felt like there was something bigger because I knew, just like building a house, it's the foundation that makes the biggest impact. I could still work with someone older, but if I can work with someone where they still have more room to mold and their wiring still coming together, and I could mold them at a younger age, I could set them on a different trajectory sooner, because every one of these pro athletes I worked with were all injured. They all had injuries. They had a lot of things they were battling, right? I call it what's that term called? Bull in a china closet, right?
Yeah.
You have brute force, but no finesse, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, back to your question, transition, you have this transition as an athlete into different phases. Now you have to transition into professional life, right? So some athletes either go to become a professional athlete, or they become a professional using their athletic makeup or backgrounds to be good in their profession, right? And I'm hearing that more and more in my network lately. There's whole groups started, and there's whole even companies started around transitioning athletes out of sports into the civilian life, if you will. So I think that the whole coach ownership of owning my role, my purpose in this life is to impact others, comes out through coaching, through mental, physical development with athletes. And the emphasis has been really around the youth athlete because of molding them and making them develop confidence at such a young age. And I think that comes back to my childhood. I didn't have a lot of confidence when I was in that gymnastics age and that middle school age and those awkward years we all go through, right? In our pubescent years that we're developing, we have questions in our heads. And so that's what I kind of had that personal connection to, saying, hey, I'm going to use what I learned from my childhood through high school, through what I learned in college, through what I've learned from a professional, my certifications and my studies that I've done. And I'm going to just apply it. And the more I apply it to people and the more I learn from applying, then I can help even more. And it's like a momentous wave that keeps building. And I got to the point where I couldn't even coach anymore myself. So I helped develop a bigger brand and a team of coaches to share that same mission. Share my same mission that I was on, find a tribe, right? Find others who think like yourself and believe in the same outcomes. And we were able to impact even more athletes. And Champions Quest today has sent over 300 athletes to college sports. Over 16 have become pro. And thousands of other athletes we've impacted as well. And that's one of those fulfilling things, that you have in life, that you've changed someone else for the better, so.
Absolutely. I love that. It's, knowing that the experiences that you've had and the impact that you have, it transcends you and yourself and what you've done in your life. It's being able to impact somebody else so that they can go on and continue that legacy. And so, Ryan, for you, how did you, were you kind of on the ground floor of Champions Quest then, or how did you kind of get involved with them if they were already in existence?
Yeah, to go back to the timeline. So as I was finishing my competing as an athlete, I was already part-time coaching for Coach Greg Moss, who founded the concept of Champions Quest.
Okay.
It was called a different name back then. And it was just, training his daughter's volleyball team at a park at the time. There wasn't even a facility. And that part-time transitioned to full-time in December of 2002, when I was tired of driving to 24-Hour Fitness and training athletes out of that big box gym structure, and I was doing something else. I was like, hey, I want to just have one thing I focus on. And I felt the vision. I saw the vision, right? I drove to this house and basically, in short, had conviction in what I told him, and basically said, I'm going full time for you. Didn't ask. I basically told him, and he saw that conviction. And again, I'm not kind of this from a box type person. I've never really been that way. And so I think once someone sees that conviction in someone, there's believability and there's trust, right?
Right.
And so that's another message to, young students out there going into their careers is, I see a lot of people waiting for someone to tell them something, when can they just look at themselves in the mirror when they get up in the morning and have that carpe diem mentality of, hey, I have ownership. I see this outcome, and I got to have that conviction when I talk to people, so they pick up on that energy. Because if they go and talk to people with question marks, we'll see if they hire me. We'll see if they do this, right? That we'll see kind of question mark mentality comes out in the energy of who you're talking to, and then the conviction's missing, right? And they go on to the next interview or resume. That's a whole other topic I can get into. But back to your question, about the Transition Champions Quest. So I convinced Coach Moss, the founder at the time, to let me go full time. And so 20 years later, we're, fourth location of growth. Obviously, we're going through some transition times right now. There's a lot of things that we're, as a whole nation, we're dealing with at the moment, especially in a service industry that is, quote, non-essential.
Right.
We're going through all those transitions right now. But, just speaking from what has happened and what has been built is something that could be more of a legacy that other people can keep carrying the torch for. And it's something bigger than myself. And that's something I really pride myself on, Katie, is, when you look back in your life and say, hey, I made an impact bigger than something that I just had my own clients and I did this. And, there's coaches out there, and I'm not here to speak bad about anything, but some people just, their mindset is I work with who's in front of me and I'm a coach and that's what I'm known for. My mindset's a little more around, well, if I can help the athlete, now how many more coaches can I teach and impact them and kind of lift them up to where they see a whole nother level of coaching? How much more can they put the mindset into the physical coaching that they do to even help more others? I'm in talks right now with one of my past athletes who was a first-round draft pick for the Chargers back in 2009, and we're even in talks about how do we kind of work together on something? How do we collaborate, because of what I did to impact him, and here he was already a top track athlete, super fast. He was a college Jim Thorpe award winner for University of Arizona. Like he, worked on all these, big things to make him athletic, but then these little seeds that I planted in him made even a bigger difference that allowed him to have a very successful career. And that's still with him today, he's like, you were that coach that did this. And, I'll always be thankful for it, so, as you go into something bigger than yourself, it's about how can it's that big picture, treetop view thinking, Katie, right? It's bigger than me. It's something bigger. It's kind of like if, at your university where you ran track, the track coach maybe taking one of your team members who like coaching and molding them to where they keep, tradition or legacy of coaching to keep that culture of that university alive as they move on to something bigger or something different, or they move or whatever may happen. Right. And so that's always something to think about, that treetop view down, not just the, looking down their nose kind of mentality. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. And I think, I really like what you said. It's not just about simply inspiring someone. It's inspiring them to be something greater than they already are, inspiring them to want to help others in the next generation. And so it's something that you don't inspire an athlete and it stops with them. You're inspiring them in a way that makes them want to help somebody else and just continue that kind of lineage. And like you said, leave that legacy behind. So at some point, your name might never be remembered, but it's the impact that you're having on these athletes. That's what's going to stand out. That is what's going to last the test of time. And so Ryan, for you then, at the time when you were getting in, like you said, you had that determination to become a full-time coach with Champions Quest, was everything already kind of paired together for you as far as being a speed and agility coach and a mindset coach, or did those two things come together as your career started to develop?
Yeah, great question. So to add a little detail to that timeline, so when I went full-time January of 2003, it wasn't even called Champions Quest. And so I was there as the, investors came in and it became a social purpose academy, not just a business. It had a bigger purpose behind it. And we figured, hey, all the numbers will work out later down the line as long as we help young athletes accomplish their goals and we make them more athletically successful, mentally, physically, and technically, right? And so Champions Quest, what it is today has been molded from my input, obviously, the efforts put in, the framework, the structure, how it all works without getting all the little details of it, but the whole system. It's a system that was created, right? And so I had a very big part of it, but also collaboration. I knew, I have enough humbleness about me and I don't have a huge ego. And I knew where I needed help and support. So I brought staff on for that. And, I'm not the weight room strength and conditioning Olympic lift guy. I knew that. So I needed some other people around me who were more that way. And maybe I even hired people who were, had more letters after their name than I do even. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I always strive more in team sports than individual, even because I thrive off of team. I pull harder. I work harder. My heart rate goes up more. I put more effort in when I feel others are energetically around the same, effort as well. And that's just how I'm wired. And so I did the same thing, talk about earlier, a few minutes ago, we talked about athlete transition to professional, or athletes transitioning to a professional in a career that they need to pull from athletic mindset in, right? Same thing. It's like, hey, I know I thrive in an environment in a team sport. I need to have an awesome team around me. So to answer your question, from 04 to 2020, that last 16 years has been around, the systems, the offerings, the how we, have athletes commit to annual programs in our academy, how we do in-season, off-season development, how we do mental development, how we integrate it. And it's shifted because we've always had a growth mindset with it. What it was in 04 is completely different, but yet the same core 16 years later, right? Because we're always evolving and making it, better and better, and learning from each year and what happens. And, it takes that in any career, any business, any structure, any sport team, no matter what it is that you're in charge of as a leader, you have to look back and say, well, how are we better today? Right. There's little phrases I have in my head that bounce around from time to time, Katie, but it's like one simple one is like beat yesterday, right? Like, how am I evolving today? How am I better than yesterday? Right. And, even if you like, say, a track athlete like yourself, it's, hey, I didn't PR, but my mindset shifted, or I had more flow, or I felt my hands a little lighter, less fist-like today, or whatever it may be, right? Or, I finally found the right shoes, or, there's always some kind of win we can pull from. And I think me being a confidence development coach, I think any type of person craves confidence in their life. They crave belief, they crave trust. And so that comes from a bunch of small wins. So every day, whether it be business or in athletics, we want to come from a state of a small win today, right? Even like everything going on right now in the world, just, how do we have small wins? How do we have a small win? June is better than May, or Monday was better than Sunday, whatever it is. Like, what's your small win to feel you transition to another level going up, and if people operate on the first floor, how do you start building to where all of a sudden you have 100-foot floor view and you're looking down and you kind of see yourself orchestrating the life you want and manifesting it, as opposed to staying on first floor and playing victim to everything happening around you. Another phrase I like to say to people is be the truck, not the trailer. A lot of people end up becoming the trailer. They're attached to life happening in front of them. They feel like they're not in control. They're doing things based off what other people need or want. And there's a mindset shift that people can work on to where they become the truck, not the trailer. They're in charge. They control their outcome. They have ownership. And sometimes even that ownership is, hey, I need more knowledge. Hey, I need to listen to this podcast again, or whatever. I need to keep building my knowledge. And then I can execute on that knowledge, and I can keep evolving my value set. What are the values that they have, and that value set you have, that mindset you have, pretty soon it's just in your own head as a person. It's like having your own business plan. It's like, this is my guiding light. This is where I'm going, and I'm going to trust it and move forward. And if things don't all work out, I'm going to pull the wins from here, here, and here, build from that, and I'll become an even better person. Right. So it's about the journey, not the destination. We've all heard that one, right?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, yes, I love that. And you have a lot of like just nuggets of wisdom and pieces, like phrases that you can cling to kind of words of affirmation to set your mind right for the day. And like you said, how can we be better than yesterday? Beat yesterday, be better today, come from a state of mind of that small win. So that small thing you can say, okay, I'm grateful for this because this happened yesterday, or I got out of bed today. That's a small win. Or, it's just those looking forward at those wins. And so, Ryan, it seems like there's a bunch of different levels of how you can approach kind of this mindset coaching. Like you said, there's being a confidence development coach. So kind of seeing if that athlete or young person is struggling in the area of confidence specifically, or maybe that's it's an underlying piece of a way that they're playing, or a way that they're a timid way they're approaching the soccer ball. So within the realm of all this mindset coaching that you do, are there different kind of facets that you approach? Is it that you meet with an athlete, you kind of gauge where they're at, and then see the best way to go about their mindset coaching? Just what kinds of levels do you have, and how do you kind of decide what athlete needs best, or I guess what they would need most when you meet them?
Yeah, that's a great question. As far as that goes, it's not kind of like a 1, 2, 3 process. I can make it as simple as that, but human beings are like snowflakes, right? There's no two alike. I've even worked with twins, identical twins, and there's even subtle differences. And it wasn't like, oh, replicate the whole training system workout for this one because it worked for this one, right?
Yeah.
And we are unique individuals. So because of that, Katie, every experience as a coach meeting someone new, because I think you're getting into, you have a new athlete, how you get going, what's the step one, and how you move forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to use you as an example, right?
Sure.
And let's just to help out, let's say that pick a 4-year block of your track career. Like think either college, think high school, think middle school, pick a area. Because if I have you kind of as an example, I can help kind of walk through this.
Okay,
so
do you want me to just pick the time, like that 4-year frame that
pick a time in your life.
Like that was like most mentally challenging, or like it doesn't matter?
Yep.
Yeah, so I would say high school, I struggled a lot with my mental game.
Okay. So you're struggling with your mental game. Is it more in practice or in competition, Katie?
Competition.
Gotcha. Okay. So what's different in your environment when you're in practice compared to competition?
What's different? Let me think. It was in competition, I was a jumper, so people were lining the runways. Even if they weren't paying attention to your event specifically, it was just having people around. Whereas practice, there was literally nobody around. It was just me and a coach, or me and one teammate. So having the people surrounding the jumping pits, the starting gun going off behind you with the starting of track races, just a lot more commotion in general in a meet versus a practice setting.
Gotcha. Okay, so just using that as an example, now that whole setting can transition to all sports. We're talking track right now, but I'm sure any other athlete listening can help relate it to their own sport as well.
Right.
So basically, those are outside factors, and most of those you can't control. You can't control the neon shorts someone has. You can't control them fixing their hair and that distracting you, or the voice in the stand, or whatever. The only thing you know that is going to happen is the gun is going to go off, right? Even if it's not for your event, right? Or you have to know that what are the things that are going to happen, and know that they're going to be there, right? And then there are things that you can control. So just that little bit you talked about, without going back real too deep into the bottom of the iceberg on this, just the surface level part of what you just said, is you would have to work on you taking ownership of what you can control and practice more visualization. So when you're in practice, you need to picture, and not just picture because that's visual, you need to auditory wire your body, visually wire your body, kinesthetically wire your body. What's it going to feel? What's your warm-up going to feel like, right? Smell, sight. Is it going to be a kind of overcast day? It's going to be a hotter than heck humid day.
Yeah.
You got to kind of picture and put all those senses around you to where when that competition comes, you feel like you've already watched the end of that movie already. You're watching, I can't think of a movie. I don't watch a lot of movies lately, but you see how that movie Avatar is going to finish because you've already watched Avatar, 10 times now, or whatever movie you're into. It could be Star Wars. You watch Star Wars over and over again. You know how it's going to end, right? You have to see in sports the movie as you already know the ending, but not just from a picture standpoint, because you can still kind of trick yourself. How does it feel? How does your emotions feel? What are sights and smells and things around you, right? So the more real you make it feel when you actually go to competition, there's a sense of I'm in control, or I've been here already. I know it, right? I know me as an athlete, once I went to the same race course again, I had a better outcome the next time I went to that course than the first time I went to that course.
Right.
Right. One of my races, we went all the way to Philadelphia across the whole country and rode there right behind the Rocky Steps. And the first race, first day on the water, there was the extra senses. There was, look at how much greener it is on the West Coast East Coast, and think about, I'm still thinking about the Philly cheesesteak I had, there's all these, things kind of go in your head, but then once you have some sense of normalcy or experience, you now feel more in control, right? Me, I had the oar in my hand. I was in the boat. I got it. You for track. Hey, I've already had these cleats on before. I've done the same warm up where I feel good at. I had a great practice. I tapered the right way. I ate well. I slept well. You did all the things that you can control. Now you'll have a better outcome. So this is just one example. I don't know if I fully answered your question, but that's an example how, like, if you and I were talking, just sitting in a room or something before we even started assessing your core strength, assessing your range of motion, things like that. It would be more just to understand, where is your headspace? Like, what are things that you're struggling with? Are you confident? Do you get nervous? So basically go through some questions of where your head's at. I know I kind of went a little out of order, but I want you to kind of feel the difference of my mindset coaching besides just going to a workout. Right.
Yeah.
And so get through the initial questions, understand you as a person and as a human being, not just another client or an athlete in front of me. That's step one, to have more of a connection. From there, understand what your goals are. So that's where you are now. Now, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? What is it you're, striving for? What is that goal where you say, yes, I did it? Is it a time? Is it a place on the podium? Like, what is it that is your win? Right. Mm-hmm. And then I would reverse engineer that. So let's work backwards. Okay, well, once we know what you want to get and when you want to get it, then what is step one, and reverse engineer it all the way back to that. So that way, hey, I'm day 7 into this journey. I followed the system. I followed the plan. I now have trust that vision will play out. I will see it at the end of the movie as I see it true. Right.
Yeah.
And then the workouts obviously go into that, because it can't be all mental, right? We still have to put our body through the range of motion, the training, the grit, the grind, and the power development, the wiring, the core strength, the kinesthetic wiring from all of our muscles working together, right? Work on our muscle imbalances, get our body in tune, right? But that's the stuff people know. People know they have to work out, right? But it's about being purposeful with it,
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, of course. And one thing, Ryan, as you were talking, I started to think about, not so much in college and in later years, I guess, I don't know if it's because of a level of maturity that you reach or whatever happens, but I remember specifically being in middle school or high school. And like you said, everything's kind of, if you train hard, if you have everything, you can only control what you can control. So the people in the stands, the gun going off, everything else, those are outside circumstances. And so, of course, you have to learn to realize I can't control anything that's going on around me. All I can control is how I perform today, what's going on in my mind, everything I did leading up to this moment. And so do you ever come across a young athlete, maybe in middle school, high school, or maybe about to go into college, that you really have to work with on, where maybe they did do, or they believe they did everything right leading up to the point of competition, and they still didn't perform well. And so on the back end, they are still frustrated or still mentally defeated because they think, I did everything right and I still couldn't do what I came out here to do. I still couldn't do what I set my mind to. Because just reflecting back, I remember having those in high school or middle school, having those thoughts. And of course, you learn to grow. And like you said, you have to learn to realize what things you cannot control and that you can only control your own reactions and your own mindset. But on the flip side of, if an athlete does believe they've done everything right with working with you, and then on the back end of their competition day, they still feel like there was something left to be desired, they felt defeated because something fell short. How do you approach that?
Yeah, that's another good one. I think, again, there's case-by-case basis. Sometimes, I'll give you one example. How you just said, I did everything and I still didn't, right? Mm-hmm. I've been around enough athletes where, they say that without looking at their body language when they're saying it. They're... And I'm speaking from experience, not for everybody.
Right.
Because I have seen, it's a different story they tell themselves. And this goes beyond athletics. This goes into career. This goes into anything, even our relationships, anything. Like, there's a story you tell yourself. And so that story, because it makes you feel good, because it's easier to deflect on something else, right? Instead of owning it, it's easier to say, yeah, I did everything. I still didn't win. I still didn't PR, right?
Right.
There is that case. I'm not saying it's all cases, but let's use that as, okay, that's box one, right?
Yeah.
That's something we can unravel the onion on in that one, right? Let's say, hey, that isn't true. And there was a true ownership. Everything was there. The warm up, the mindset, the start, the just everything just was there and still didn't have the result, then it can be, let's put it in the physical box. Okay, we still need to keep training. Maybe our glute strength still isn't where it needs to be. Our power isn't where it needs to be. We still need a little more range of motion, whatever it may be. Like there could be some physical limitations because, for example, you could take the fastest Formula One race car driver and put him in a car that's not engineered right, and he still won't win the race, right? And so that's my metaphor with mindset and racing. I'm a fan of racing. You might hear some metaphors with it, but think of your body as a track athlete or any athlete as a high performing F1 race car. All the engineering goes into it, the suspension, which is, your body's ability to cut and change direction, right? Or to bounce off each stride and bounce forward. You have your strength, which is your power plant, the motor, right? And then you have all the ratios of everything, which is kind of like your biomechanical wiring of everything activating at certain times, right? And you can have this high performing machine, but if the driver's not right and not fully planted and strapped and connected to that body, there could be a disconnect. So sometimes it might be great mindset and the body not be right. That's kind of more what I battled with a little bit later in life. My mind was developing when I was finishing my rowing career, where I found my body wasn't doing what it needed to cardiovascularly to have the output that my mind was at. So I had an imbalance. It's like a teeter-totter, right? Mm-hmm. I knew when I finished my career, I could have had a little more physical output because I knew my mindset was strong, right?
Yeah.
There's other people who maybe opposite. They did all the physical work, but their mind wasn't quite right. The way they got past, you see it in racing all the time, that feeling, once someone feels past, they can feel defeated and never resurge and pass someone back.
Yep.
Right? The ability mentally to have the strength to recharge back, right? Or if a football team, a team's down, they come back, or soccer, and whatever it is, there's these thoughts can get in your head and play with you and develop the outcome, right? One of our athletes is on the U.S. women's soccer team, and she's a freshman at Stanford, and she scored she scored for Stanford as a freshman, as a defender. She scored for the U.S. national team, all within a year of itself, because she has a mindset of, I can score, not, I'm new here and these other people are better, or, that's a different conversation. But there's these mindsets we can play with ourselves, and that determines the outcome. Mm-hmm. So I know I'm going on a couple of tangents, but back to what you said about, I'm going back to the exact statement you said. I did everything I could and I still didn't have the result. It's either a story you're telling yourself mentally, or it's a physical limitation that you have to keep working on. And then another kind of phrase to put with all that and wrap it all in a bow, Katie, is we're supposed to fail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really a definite important nugget for anybody. Anybody who gets completely weathered and locked in the room for days after, or just the world's crushed, right? I'm not saying I've never done that, but I have a way to compartmentalize it to a small amount of time, because it's like stages of grief. We need time to kind of process our emotions, right? But the faster someone can kind of bounce back out of that emotion or that experience, and have that experience turn into a positive, every failure we have teaches us what we need to do, right? Or what we need to stop doing. Mm-hmm. We need to stop that distraction or whatnot, right? Because even like you said, maybe everything was great in there, but that one thing, that one look in the stands, that one kind of, you took the blinders off and felt the person in lane 7 next to you when you shouldn't even felt someone in any other lane. You should have felt like you were in lane 6 by yourself and no one else was around you. No hurdle got hit. No one fell. You were so tunnel vision. All you saw was the finish line. And that was the one thing that you didn't turn on, so to speak, even though you might say, I did everything. Well, did you really own that one part? Mm-hmm. Did you really own the blinders? Did you really own the focus? Right. And so, I'm going to stop there for now, but let me know if there's any other ways you want me to go into that.
No, that's great. Because it's true. I love that. You had the two kind of reasons why either you're not being honest with yourself, or maybe you don't realize you're not being truthful. It's just something you've taught yourself to believe. Or two, there is a physical limitation, so you have to learn to work through that. But then two, the overarching theme is we're supposed to fail. So you fail and you figure out how to move past that, either mentally, physically, or both. And then you take those steps forward. And so Ryan, for you, obviously you've acquired such knowledge and acumen through your time being both a speed and agility coach as well as a mental coach. And so for you, through this kind of timeline and this process, where did stronger, Quicker come from? How did you come up with this idea, and what exactly is it?
Yeah, the timeline of that was, let's see, my son was born in 2013. Yeah, he's turning 7 actually. At the point of this recording, he'll be 7 by the time it comes out. And so right before he was born, I was really processing this next, talk about transition earlier, right?
Yeah.
Another transition in my life of fatherhood. And I knew that my time was going to have a whole nother pie in the pie graph. And mixing that also with the word impact I used earlier, where I felt, there's people all across the country who are listening to this now even, who are like, man, I wish I had someone like Ryan in my life where I can help. And I'm not in, Palm Beach, Huntington Beach, like the Southern California, area, and I can't work with him in person, but I still want his coaching. I want his learnings, his teaching. I want him to impact me. How do I do that? And so it kind of came from some people just organically asking me. I know a lot of people in business who their whole business started just by someone asking them a question. They're like, oh, that's a good point. And they start something for it,
Yeah.
And so it's kind of more of a creative outlet for me saying, hey, let me start, putting some blogs down. Let me start putting some digital resources. Let me find a way to do video analysis for people. So that is something that, I even started doing with someone who deals with scouting for professional baseball. Actually, we've been in recent talks. He tested it with me, sent me a video of someone in baseball. I gave my lens of a view of what I saw. And he's like, exactly as I'm talking about. I see it through a baseball lens. You see it from a completely different lens. And there's something powerful with that, so that was another validation point, talking about confidence again, you try things and you have the confidence once you have validation, right? So Stronger Quicker is a way to reach more people, people to reach out to me and say, hey, I need help with this, or here's some film or video. No matter what you are, whatever sport you are, I can watch it and come with a different lens that maybe no other coaches actually picked up on or is trained to look at and see and give that insight. And so that was just something I started for that. And, through fatherhood and getting Champions Quest to where it needs to be, that took a little more of a time. So Stronger Quicker took a little bit of a backseat, but I'm at the point now where I want to revamp it back up and, get it up there. But also Champions Quest was my main and is my main focus to make sure that stays successful. So if things ever shifted in priorities, Champions Quest was my default to make sure I put my time and energy into that to keep that growing, because that is the local one, so, but that's what Stronger Quicker, kind of how it came about and, what is there. And now my next thing I'm working on, as I've been on other podcasts and I've talked to other people, I'm more of a speaker than I am a writer, but I am putting together some thoughts and coachings into a book that I'm working on actually. Again, taking the wins, instead of looking at the victim mentality of this whole, health thing that's going across the world and the Stay-at-Home Act and all that I'm like, hey, this is a perfect time to put thoughts down and see what kind of book comes out of it. And as I put down some framework, there is a title that came to mind. I don't know if I'm going to stay with the title or not, but it has something to do with mindset, of course, but it's about people achieving their full potential in their mindset and their way of thinking and the thoughts that they have come in and that sort of thing. So I'm working on that right now. So I hope to see that come to fruition and see how that can impact more people as well.
That's exciting. So do you have a timeline for this book, or is it just something like a project that you're working on right now?
It's more of a project. I haven't given myself a timeline just yet, not from I don't want to fail and not miss it. It's just more of I'm really kind of shifting the way I do some things lately to where, I am a person who is very driven and go in fifth gear. I can talk fast. I'm part Italian. I get into it. I have this coach mentality comes out. But with this project, I'm trying to take a little bit of a different view with it and not force it. And as kind of that creative flow comes to me, I put things down, or let's say even just out of this conversation alone, I'm already hearing some things. I can hear myself talk out loud and like, oh, that's something I could put down. Right. And so I think if it's not forced, it can come off more genuine and more natural than like, I have to write this. I got to get it to a publisher, like here's the deadline, you know what I mean? So I think if I organically, let it flow, then later the last 20% of it can be dialed in and then I can get into a timeline that, hey, I want it published by this point. I want to get it out there and that sort of thing. So, it's just, I want it to be more about the phases and stages. Stages is probably a better word that people go through mentally to develop this full potential mindset that they can own and they can harness and they can embody and they could deliver on, basically, through planting these seeds, as using my farmer talk, planting the seeds so they have a good harvest later, right?
Yeah.
Pulling that back full circle. But, how do you develop ownership? How do you have reflection on where you are and have awareness? Some people want a square peg, round hole things. They want to keep putting the square peg in the round hole, but then not have a good result and they get frustrated, and so how do you kind of rewire how you look at things? That's the other, little nugget for everybody is, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? And so, you can always change some perspective and move forward. You can go from, oh, this food, I hate this food, to, wow, at least I have nourishment and I have a roof over my head and I have nourishment I can put in my body, right? That's a quick mindset shift, right? There's always a way you can shift something in your mindset to make you have a better day, right? And we are in control. It's no one else's fault. No matter who's leading our country, who our coach is, who lives in the house we're living in, or situation. At the end of the day, we have to take full control and ownership of our own actions, thoughts, beliefs, outcomes, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely. And I love what you said. It's so much about perspective. So you can be in kind of a crappy situation in its own right. You can realize that other people are doing things that maybe you don't like, or maybe they feel like they're hurting you. But the truth is, you can't control what they do. You can't control what's happening outside of you. Just like going right back to athletics, you can't control anything outside of you. But what you can control is what's going on in your own head. So how are you going to look at this situation? Are you going to let it defeat you? Or are you going to use it as a way to help build you up? And I think, like you said, just drawing back on from the time you growing up on a farm and then being an athlete, everything that you learned as an athlete and all those skills and disciplines that are instilled within you at that young age, they come up in ways throughout your life that maybe you never even realized. But then it's, as you mature and you grow and you have more experiences and you garner these things, you look back and reflect and can realize, wow, everything I learned as an athlete did not just exist on the track or on the soccer field or in the pool. All of those things that I learned can now transcend to literally any other area that I can apply it to. And so it's amazing too, kind of coming full circle again with all these athletes that you get to impact, whether through virtual coaching, in-person coaching, through your book that's going to come out, through just discussions. It's not just impacting them right now in their lives. It's how they're going to, again, legacy, how you're going to instill these things within them so that they can carry on into their athletic career, their coaching career, and then beyond, no matter where it is that they go, inside or outside of the world of athletics. It's how are they going to use those skills no matter where they go.
Yeah, totally. And one of the proudest moments, I could share this statement that some other coaches that have worked around me as well, when we hear a young athlete tell us that, hey, I want to, major in kinesiology, or I want to be a coach one day because you've impacted me so much. I want to impact others. We've never not smiled when we've heard that phrase, right? It's like, right. Yeah, and so, you're doing something right when other people want to follow in your steps and do the legacy thing, or, take, or even if it's some facet of it, even if it's not a complete replication of it, but, that's, I'm sure you can mention your top 2 coaches you've ever had, or the most impactful ones you've had, or something like that, or we just pull from each one. There's not a one perfect coach or one perfect mentor. I also believe, going back to that, we're meant to fail. We're also meant to experience different things, and maybe that experience that I had where I blamed, let's say, a coach in middle school or something, could have been an experience I needed to mold me into who I was becoming the next couple of years, and I feel where my mind is kind of now, I feel like people transition and evolve at least every 5 years. So every about 5 years is a shift, and definitely by 10 years for sure. But there's different phases we go through. And as we evolve, we have to pull from all those experiences and say, hey, you know what, that was meant to happen. I was supposed to go through that pain. I know with even getting into healing people, I said the word healing beyond just training and coaching, because there's people that are hurting. There's people who are, having mental illness. I mean, we got to talk more about mental illness more and more. I've heard of people taking their lives over something that could have been fixed if they had the right people in their life, right? And people who give up sports too soon, or quit something, or they don't have the support in their life, And so when I use the word healing as another kind of word out there, to put a framework around that, some people can experience that pain or that suffering and then turn it around later to impact and change hundreds or thousands of others, because to go back to your word transition earlier, Katie, right? Another transition in life is now you've transitioned from being, quote, a victim or somebody experiencing a negative event to, well, now you're evolving and impacting someone else for the better. And because you've lived it yourself, now you could be that person who is paying it forward, or returning the favor as well. And, it's never, whenever you heal or train or coach or mentor someone, it's never about something out of a book. Even if I put all this stuff down to a book I'm writing, it's never like this book's gonna be the be all end all to everybody, right? But is it that one nugget that one person needed to hear, right? That one seed that had to be planted at that point. This conversation, there's got to be a handful of people out there. I'm hoping at least 5, but there's got to be at least, somewhere in the 100 range, at least, of people listening to this, that this seed and this seed made sense. Or even if it's a parent, hey, I'm going to implant that seed and this seed into my child now, or my athlete, or I'm going to apply it to my business life, or whatever it may be. I just hope, that there are people out there who can take, a knowledge seed or a nugget, whatever you want to call it, and plant it into their mindset and their day to day and move forward. So
you never know who's listening. That's probably my favorite thing I ever heard. And I mean, it applies to literally anything, but specifically in the world of podcasting and in, online media. It's, you never know who's listening. You never know who's reading that post that you put out there. And that has always resonated with me, because it's true. If you impact just that one person, you have no idea the seed that you're planting within them. It's exactly what they needed to hear at exactly the right time, or exactly what they needed to see. And so even though it's just a routine, it's something you do for 219 weeks. This is the episode that there's one person out there that needs to hear Ryan Bishel's story. There's somebody out there who needs to hear what you do every day for a living, so that they can realize, okay, I can do this too. I'm going to be pushed. I'm going to become a speed and agility coach and a mindset coach. I'm going to do this like he did. I'm going to try out for my crew team. I'm going to do these. And it's just, you never know what piece of your story is actually going to resonate with someone most, but there's always going to be that one person. You never know. You just never know who's out there needing to hear what you have to say.
100%. Yeah. And one more kind of piece of puzzle I'll kind of put together, I skipped over earlier, just hearing you talk even, that when you mentioned speed and agility coach, being a performance coach, it's about strength, it's about balance. I mean, there's all these, facets of foundation that have to come into athleticism, right? It's never just one thing that makes you athletic.
Right.
And so what I found, as I was going down the, certification route and the training route and getting the programming down and all that, that's when I started realizing that mindset was such the multiplier of result, because if an athlete didn't have the right thought process or mindset around a form I put them in, or a knee drive, or a change of direction drill, or a start for you for track to get out, no matter what it is that I was mechanically coaching them on, I started finding that if I would just switch their mindset or get into, I use the term field coaching a lot. That's my area. It says, what's your coaching style? Well, I'd say mine is field coaching, because it is a feeling. It's an ownership. Did you really feel the arm swing in that range of motion? Did you feel what the ball of your foot felt like when it contacted the ground, right? Did you feel your core engaged or not when you executed this, right? And so I'm going on about that, but you know what I mean? So it's the feel. So if we can connect the mind to body and have that mind-body experience, and then have the energetic pull around it, and I say the energetic pull because there's something bigger at stake, what we're trying to accomplish, right? Do we have the energy of saying, I am going to have a positive result. I am going to execute this play. I see myself taking on this person a foot taller than me and still winning, right? Yeah. Whatever the sport may be, right? I saw it when I was training the Supercross guys. They had this mind block in their way that I wasn't, and I'm going back in some years, but those of you who know James Stewart, it's like, okay, I'm lining up to James Stewart, Chad Reed, and these factory guys. I'm meant to be middle of the pack. I'm not meant to get the whole shot because I don't have this bike, or I don't have this, or whatever it may be, right? I saw those limiting beliefs even as a young 20-something-year-old, and so basically, just, I know I'm going on these different topics, Katie,
no,
but
it's great.
back to the point, it's just basically having that mind-body connection. I think I skipped over that a little bit in our talk earlier, but I did want to make a point about the puzzle piece of, as you go down the coaching route or athletic route, no matter what route you're going, another message I want to just put out there is just everybody should have a mix of mind-body connection into their weekly routines and the weekly practices, daily practices, things like that. We talk a lot about nutrition, we talk about fuel, we talk about stretching, flexibility. And I think right now that mindset and being more awakened to that is even more important than ever, especially right now where athletics is so up in the air with everything going on, that this is a time where every athlete, even every business professional, every parent, needs to work on their headspace right now. What is it that they see true? What is it they can control? What is the ownership they take on? And, like you said earlier, we don't know who we're impacting, so if we all have a better mindset and outlook and we come from a better place with all of our actions, then we can't not do better good. There's no way we can't have a better outcome, if we lead from the right, headspace and intention going in and setting that intention. So I want to add that to it too, Katie.
Yeah. I mean, yes, absolutely. And, again, it's that theme of it's your approach, your perspective, your mental state when you're going after something, or when something happens to you. It's how you're going to react to it. And so, Ryan, I mean, loved our conversation. We talked a lot about legacy and the impact you're leaving on people behind you, and or the ones that you get to mentor and coach. And so, looking back on your own athletic, coaching, mindset career, and just this incredible journey that you've led, and looking forward to all of the things that you've accomplished to date, and knowing you're going to accomplish so much more with the individuals that you're going to help, with the book that you're going to put out, just the expanse, the virtual coaching, the expanse of your reach is going to be limitless, which is amazing. And so, Ryan, though, I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
Great question. Again, I see why you do this, Katie. What do I want to be remembered for? I mean, I'll start off with just saying a phrase, to take it out of my own head, just from, taking it from outside source. Previous athletes have given me the common feedback of, I ask them, what impact did I make, or, how was I as a coach, or however I asked the question. The common phrase I always got back was, you were tough, but you had my back, or you were tough, but you had my best interest in mind. Right. And so, I'd say that phrase, really fueled me to say, hey, my purpose in life is to impact others for the better. That's a general phrase, but that can go into maybe they're just more confident now. Maybe they took more ownership of something. Maybe they felt better about themselves in their own skin. The soul operates in this body we have, right? Do they even appreciate the body they have and what is given to them? And do they have a glass half full mentality? Do they have a carpe diem mentality, right? And so no matter what facet that resonates in, Katie, I feel what I want to be known for is just impactful. If I had to pick one word, it's being impactful. If I had to pick a phrase, it is, raising others to their full potential, and being someone who can, just leave my footprint, right? And know that the world and the outcome and all the inner workings and how we're all interconnected, there's a bigger thing at stake than just our own personal ego or what we have in mind, right? That's why I've always been the behind the scenes coach. That's probably why I only have so many followers now and things like that. I'm just a behind the scenes person that has great, relationships with people I interact with. I have, a great network of people that all have my back and support what I do and appreciate what I have and pick my brain on things, and so I'm very humble for my accomplishments, and humility is really important, I think, in life, and knowing that we have a growth mindset. There's always more to learn, more mentors to have. Who's my next mentor? Like I said earlier, everything happens in 5 years. So I want to leave this footprint out there that maybe the people hearing this, hey, maybe Ryan's my new mentor I need to have, right? Maybe this is a new level of mindset I got to work on, and maybe that's a bigger impact I get to make because of this platform that I got to be on. And I'm very thankful for you having me on today, Katie.
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest, check out the show notes at keepmovingforward.us. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective Studio. Always remember, you can beat the odds and go the distance if only you keep moving forward.